Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beginnings, the show that asks, where do creative people come from? My name is Andy. I'm the host of the show and a writer and performer based in Los Angeles, California. I'm going to keep this intro quick. I just took an Advil PM, and it's starting to kick in. And yes, I have the constitution of a jelly man. And yes, one Advil PM is enough to knock me out. Great episode today. This is Mike Allred. And if you don't know who that is, why don't I read you his bio right now? Originally from Oregon, Eisner and Harvey Award-winning comics creator Mike Spike Allred began his career in comics while working as a journalist. He created his well-known character Madman in the early 90s, and since then has drawn on books like Sandman, Fable, Silver Surfer, and numerous others. He co-created two wonderful series, iZombie and X-Statix, both amazing, and is currently drawing Superman Space Age and a new X-Statix series. I'm a huge fan of Spike's work. X-Statix is one of my favorite comics. It's why I reached out to Mike in the first place, even though I pretty much love everything he draws. And guess what? He's a super nice guy. We talk about his life in journalism before he got into comics, growing up in the Mormon church, and tons of other things. It's great. I hope you enjoy this one. And if you do, and you want to check out other episodes of Beginnings, what I like to do here in the beginning is a little recommended if you like. If you like my talk with Spike, well, maybe you'll like my talk with other comics creators. Why, just in the last year or two, I've talked to Chip Zdarsky, Kelly Thompson, Ryan North, Jim Starlin, tons of other people, and tons of TV writers and actors and comedians and musicians. So if you like what you hear and you want to subscribe to the show, you can do that wherever you get your podcast from. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Andy Beckerman. And, a plug. You know what? My old band, we had a lost album. We recorded an album before we ended up all going our separate ways, half of us to grad school, and we rediscovered the album in quarantine, and it's still really great, so we thought, why don't we put it out? And you can get it on Bandcamp at andybeckerman.bandcamp.com, or if you can stream it wherever you stream your albums from. The band is called Harm, and if you like Cassiopeia and you like tons of melodies and 3-part harmonies, then I think you will like this. So please check that out. And oh boy, stay tuned. A lot of great episodes coming up. Britt Lauer from the wonderful show Severance and also Casual, Half-Handed Cloud, Kevin Barnes from Of Montreal, Tim McElrath from Tim McElrath? Actually, I don't know how to say his last name. From Rise Against. That was really cool. All of those were really great talks, so stay tuned for those. But for now, let's talk to Spike. I'm curious if you are an anxious person like I am, or if you seem like a pretty cool person, but I only know you from our correspondence over email.
I definitely have my anxieties. I actually have some. My father was a shrink, he diagnosed me with severe existential anxiety. Mm-hmm. But that's a whole other thing, and that is like, it happens every 4 or 5 years where I have these visions and like eternity is just laid out and revealed to me, and just it shatters my identity, and it's horrible and terrifying and surreal. It completely pulls me from reality. So, yes. But most of the time, other than that, I'm almost ridiculously happy and confident and joyful and self-aware, with gratitude, full of love and appreciation for life. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, I have my weird little things. I will do everything I can to avoid airports.
Uh-huh.
stuff like that. It's a catch-22 for me because I love being around people. I love comic book shows. I love the opportunity to thank people for supporting what we do, so we get to do it. But getting there is something that I almost find impossible to do. I used to travel professionally and seen the world. And now the thing I want to do most is just stay in this little Disneyland we've built for ourselves.
Mike, actually, wait, do you prefer Mike or Michael?
Actually, I prefer Spike, but
Spike. Great. Spike, I have to tell you, your work, okay, there is, just in you saying what you just said, I'm like, obviously your work resonates me, but there is this other thing under it that I think resonates with me on such a deeper level, because like everything you're saying, I've been thinking about lately. I'm wondering, you saying that you prefer to be in this Disneyland you built. Is this just something that's happened during the pandemic, or do you think that's just been a natural outgrowth of your life?
Oh, definitely.
And it would have happened, pandemic or not.
Definitely an outgrowth of my life. The pandemic was convenience. I felt, oh man, I felt terribly guilty for being as comfortable as I've been during this nightmare. And I don't have a problem wearing a mask. I prefer wearing a mask. A bit of a germaphobe. I've developed into an efficiency expert. I'll figure out the quickest way to get from point A to point B. The best way to be productive. All kinds of things. Again, there's a lot of contradictions and paradoxes. And for instance, if I go to a party, but I don't know who anybody is, I find the nearest corner and hide.
Yep.
If I'm with friends and family and loved ones, you would never know that I have those insecurities. It's strange. Like, we have family Fridays. Almost every Friday we get together with our friends and family, and we'll have a meal. And the stage equipment that we used for touring with my band, The Gear, is in my studio, where I have a little performance stage, and we do karaoke. So we literally have the best sounding karaoke club I've ever been to. and we have a bunch of pinball machines. And so everything stops on Friday. We visit, have great conversations, enjoy the company of our loved ones and best friends, and then just play and sing. It's a blast. And we're also, like, very open. It's kind of like, yeah, you're welcome. Come over. And I don't have any, reservations about people I don't know as well. I guess because there's a comfort with, again, my studio also, it's like our movie room with leveled movie theater seats.
Mm-hmm.
And my workstation, my drawing table, computer, all that stuff is the back row of this movie theater. So it's just my favorite place to be. And I'm surrounded by all of my toys, and I've got this ridiculous 1/6 scale toy collection with Hot Toys, Sideshow, those kind of things, and I use them as maquettes. And also and I got my guitars here. It's my happy place.
Now I got to ask, were you like this when you were a kid, where community and friends, you were gregarious and vivacious in those kind of contexts, and more reserved and introverted in other kinds of contexts where you didn't know people?
I honestly don't remember any kinds of anxieties of any kind. My childhood was pure joy. It was packed with pop culture. I mean, the Batman TV show was one of my earliest memories. My older brother's comic books were filled up in every space. I always remember having fun playing with the neighbor kids. It wasn't until junior high and experiencing bullying and that kind of thing where, and then having somebody make fun of a haircut or what I'm wearing, or just I had a girlfriend that an older kid had a crush on, and the way he dealt with it was humiliating me and bullying me and that kind of thing. And so with that, I became very aware of the fact that there are cruel humans that I'm sharing this planet with. And so from there, life kind of became a chess match. And with kind of developing awareness of my surroundings and learning who I could be comfortable with and who I needed to avoid, that sort of thing. And then I, fortunately for me, had a natural ability with athletics. I did really well in football. I was all region and took second in sprinting with 100-yard dash and track. I mean, just that helped. I guess if there's something that people will celebrate,
yeah,
then it's a little easier to have social acceptance, and so a comfort level will come with that, and and I mean, I don't. Boy, there's my home life at that time was a bit of a nightmare, and so I also got more and more involved in school activities to avoid having to be at home. So I'm not comfortable completely going to those details. My family split up. I didn't get along with my stepdad, who was a rancher, and made me fully aware that I was a city boy. Even though I could ride a horse or do anything as well as he could, he always made me feel less than. And but I just didn't like being around him, so I did everything I could to be at school. So I mean, so that's just a really quick summary of the anxieties that challenged my life through my school years. Then with college was fantastic. That was a blast. At that point, people stop being jerks, and you're not, and because you're not with the same kids all the time, you're got a whole campus to work around. There aren't these social cliques that you have to suffer in say high school or junior high, which was the worst. Junior high was a nightmare. High school got a lot easier, like I said, because I found that I did well with these different activities and events. But then with college, it was like, oh, okay, we can just be normal people now and hang out with the people that we enjoy and have things in common with, and we can hang out with the artists and the musicians and that sort of thing. So that's a brief summary of my anxieties. But to answer your earlier question, it's all just been a very natural progression. Meeting Laura, my life has only gotten better. We've been together from the moment we met. It was October 22nd, 1980. And it was the most magical day of my life. And everything has only just gotten better from that moment on. she she's my rock, my inspiration, my everything, and everything I love in my life is because of her. Our children and our children's children. It's fan freaking tastic.
Was there something like when you met your wife, or when you met her, in 1980? Was there something like that changed in you then, that you knew that this was? My wife asks us. My wife and I have a podcast together where we talk about relationships with people, and she always asks this question. I find it really interesting. How did you know that she was the one for you? Like, did something change in your life? Like, what happened?
It's so beyond any other human experience. It's undeniable. The apartment complex that I lived in was at the top of the hill above the campus, and so we had a shuttle bus take us to the student center. And so at the end of the school day, wait for the shuttle bus, get on, and go home. And on this particular day, again, October 22nd, 1980, I was in line to get on the shuttle bus, and coming off the shuttle bus was the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen. And I had been there since summer. I got to school early, and my first year in college, and so had at least a month in the summertime to just kind of kick around and get used to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I saw this beautiful girl and hadn't seen her before, and as we're walking past each other, as I'm moving to get on the bus and she's coming off, we lock eyes and, unembarrassed, kept looking at each other, just staring into each other's eyes, walking past each other, turning around, walking backwards, looking at each other. Me getting on the bus, taking my seat and pressing my face up against the glass. He's still kind of walking and looking back at me, smiling. And then as the bus is pulling away, I'm thinking, you idiot. I haven't seen her before. How am I going to find her again? And I get home, doing my schoolwork, watching TV, whatnot, knock on the door, and there's a girl who's like, hey, it's Tracy here. And I'm like, yeah. And Tracy was one of my roommates. And she's like, yeah, I borrowed some of my record albums. So I yelled, hey, Tracy. And come on in. There's the little living room, and then there's the bedrooms. There were two, and there were four of us, two in a room. So this girl steps in, and behind her is the most beautiful girl I've ever seen in my life. And so Tracy comes out and says, hey, yeah, come back. And so the girl who knocked on the door goes back to get her records from my roommate Tracy. And I say, hey, saw you earlier today. She's like, yeah, I saw you too. And we introduced ourselves to each other, and I said, you want to go for a walk? And she's like, yeah. She yells back at her friend and says, hey, I'm going to go for a walk. My roommate's called, this is where I got the nickname Spike, actually, from my roommate JJ. So she's going for a walk with me. And her confused friend's like, yeah, okay. But we went for a walk and stayed out all night talking and just electrified by not just the beauty of this person, but the inner beauty of this person. Just too unreal. And for the next, till Christmas, we just saw each other every possible moment. I flunked my art history class because it was in the evenings. I just didn't go. and because I just wanted to be with Laura, and we just always enjoyed just being together and just walking and talking and holding hands and snuggling on whatever couch we could find, and just could not get enough of each other. And like her roommates are like, "You spend too much time with him." My roommates are like, "Hey, we never see you anymore." So what? we know, we're good. We're exactly who we want to be with. And so then Christmas rolls around and just devastated having to pull away from each other. But she grew up 4 miles from Disneyland in Orange, California, and then she's telling her parents that she's madly in love, and her grandparents say, "Well, hey, we'll drive you up to Oregon," because I was in Roseburg, which is I live in Eugene, Oregon now. We live in Eugene, Oregon, and Roseburg, where I was born and stayed until high school. That's where I was with my dad and my stepmom, which is, I love Oregon. And so her grandparents drove her up, met my dad and stepmom, and from there we grouped up with other kids to drive back to school, which was BYU, Idaho. And
oh yeah,
and so
I had a bunch of friends that went to BYU.
Good. I fortunately made a really good impression, so they reported back to her parents that they thought I was a good guy, and we carpooled back to school. And what was great about it was a pickup with a shell, and we just had sleeping bags in the back and just got to snuggle the whole way back. It was lit. And then again, just saw each other every possible moment. And 9 months to the day that we met, we got married. It was
wow.
Like, and so, but anyway, again, from the day we met, there was just, it was undeniable. We were soulmates. And then you would even look at our, I'm 6 days older than her.
Uh-huh.
So we have a birthday week in January. And if you look at our baby pictures, I remember I grew up in Oregon and she grew up in California, but you'd go to Sears photo studio or whatever and get your picture taken every year. And so you'd look through our family pictures, these portraits, and we'd be posed the same. So, at age 4, we're cross-legged with our chin on our hand. The photos look like she got her picture taken, and then I came in and they posed me the same way. Stuff like that. It's just crazy. And then even the same front tooth was blackened. This, like the weirdest thing. We each had like an infection or something in our front baby tooth. It's stuff like that. It's like we're like just soulmates that just kind of going through the world just separate from each other. And then when we found each other, that was it.
I mean, I have a bunch of questions about this, but
I'll shut up and let you ask more questions, because I could give you my whole story.
No, I want the whole story, but I'm curious, did you go on a mission together?
Oh no, I was born and raised in the church. This explains a lot of my philosophy of life. My mom was very active in the church. My dad was a very intense intellectual, and he had gone on a mission. In fact, he was in the first group of missionaries to go into Germany after World War II.
Wow.
Our family has a newspaper article where you see him and these other missionaries going up the gangplank onto the ship that's going to take them to Germany. And he has a mission journal. And in the journal, he recounts stuff like, why am I torturing these people? Like I come into these people's lives, tell them that what they believe isn't right. And instead of enlightening them, they seem to be more upset because I'm challenging their worldview and their belief system. And it didn't sit well with him. And also him doing something because it was expected of him and not because he himself firmly believed in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was a journeyman and would just try everything. Like he would always have a new hobby. If it was scuba diving, he would master it, and then he would move on to something else. And then it would be parachuting. And then he got into gliders. He growing up, he built 2 open cockpit biplanes in our basement.
What?
Yeah, our house. I always related it to the Bat Cave from the Batman TV show in the 60s, because from the street you would see our house, but then if you drove around down this alley, and that you would then go down and then turn into the garage, which was hidden, and into the basement. And then next to the garage was this big open basement area, which also had doors that could open out. And he built the shop down there, where he could weld and build stuff. He built a photography studio down there. So he mastered photography. He even got into identifying birds and flowers. It wasn't just these crazy adventurous hobbies. He would also just, hey, we're going to go look for wildflowers this weekend. It's like, okay. And press them in behind glass but then he would, okay, I've learned everything I want to about that. Now I'm going to move on to something else. But because of that, him being a private pilot, I learned to fly when, as a kid. He would take us up and, okay, now keep this between here and here, and you use this to increase your speed. You use this to go up and down, and so we're up there flying. And on my birthdays, I would get to invite some friends and take them up, and Dad would be like, okay, it's you now. And my anyway, so it was he was very inspiring to me, and in that he was always thinking and always studying stuff out and always challenging things. So if you got into a discussion about religion with him, he wouldn't go out of his way to try to disprove your beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
He was always very friendly and polite to if any church people came over. But if you came at him, he came back with facts and would challenge you and say, well, okay, since what you believe is the truth, how can you deny what these people believe? How can you say that what they believe is wrong? And then because he had studied the scriptures and, he could tell you where the inconsistencies were. And you wouldn't want to get him started on the Old Testament. And the first thing he would ever say is like, I don't want to take any beliefs from anybody, but you can't believe in this book word for word because fact, it's been translated and retranslated and edited and re-edited and retranslated countless times.
Yeah.
And so if somebody decides, well, gay people are evil and God hates gay people because of some obscure line in Leviticus,
mm-hmm.
that's what you're going to get passionate about. That's the that's the field you want to battle on. And so from him, I got this very open-minded, free-thinking. I'm only going to commit myself to things that I can firmly know and believe in, while at the same time being respectful and interested in what other people believe in. And I've always had that curiosity. And there are things I really admire about the faith I was raised in. But there are also things that I'm like, you know what, that's all good, but I'm not playing that. That's where I draw the line. And no, I'm not going to that. And no, I'm not going to do that. And no, I'm not going to go on a mission. And so it's always been a dichotomy, a very challenging thing. But I have a lot of great friends who are active in the church, and they respect the fact that that's a place that I don't enjoy being. There are other things I'd rather be doing, and that if there is a God, and the way both my mom and dad would put it was that, well, the Mormon faith believes in heavenly parents, that we also have a heavenly mother,
Mm-hmm.
and that the entire point of existence is eternal progression, and that over eons and eons and eons that we can become like our heavenly parents and have worlds of our own, and that they were like us, that eons and eons and eons before they had been like us and reached this level to where they became gods. So I find that appealing, and especially if you're growing up on comics like The New Gods,
Right?
Jack Kirby, it's like, okay, this is cool. I get this, as opposed to like we die, we go to heaven, and we sit on a cloud playing a harp for all eternity, which in my mind is a nightmare. That's just hell. There's this hilarious South Park episode where they're in heaven and they're like, "Oh, the Mormons are right." they're up there quilting, It's so again, a lot of admiration and love and affection, but at the same time, that's not the party I want to go to. So if we do have heavenly parents, I would equate them to my parents. Now, their divorce was devastating for me. I was 11, and no one I knew had been divorced. So this was one of the first challenges of my reality being spun upside down, and especially then being dragged to church and being treated like my family had failed. That I'm this thing that is part of this failure. And so I resented that. And of course, divorce became more and more common as I grew up, especially as I'm, meeting other people and then moving into junior high, and my best friend, parents were divorced, so I spent all my time with him. But then in high school, I got sent to live with my mom, and again, not fun. Mom's awesome, but I just did not get along with the guy she married.
Right. It seemed like he was somewhat resentful for whatever reason in his own head.
Well, also I had serious anger issues and resentments, and it was I didn't have the skills to know how to be polite in addressing my mom, because ultimately what we found out was that Dad was well, we could really get into some wild stuff, but she essentially married Dad because he was moving away.
Mm-hmm.
And she wanted to get out. He was his ticket. He was her ticket.
I see.
To get out. And he was going to, different universities, getting his doctorate. And so constantly, now he has to go here. And then he got a job in Roseburg, Oregon. And that's how they ended up settling there, and then he ended up working at the VA hospital in Roseburg, which is the inspiration for One Floor of the Cuckoo's Nest, and blanking on the author's name.
Ken Kesey?
Yeah, he was my dad's orderly.
What?
Yeah. So that's where Dad spent the rest of his career. And it's a compound. There are these giant brick buildings, and like you drive into there's like it's huge. It's like bigger than a golf course, and then you drive through and there's these series of giant red brick buildings, and then these grounds, just grassy, wooded, forested areas that surround it, and it's in the middle of Roseburg. If you can kind of make it out if you're driving through on I-5, if you just kind of see these giant brick buildings in the distance. But yeah, that's where my dad finished out his career. He also had a private practice and had an office in our house. And so I would see these broken people. And then he was in charge of the alcoholic ward. And so if I were to visit him in the hospital, he would go through the main lobby reception area and either go up the stairs or the elevator. And then there would be another reception area. And so I'd go up there and they'd go, "Hey, yeah, your dad's back there." And then I'd walk down this long hallway where, his office was at the end, and then just nothing but windows on the other side. But this hallway was really dark. And to the left and right, there would be these open doors, and you would look in the rooms and there would just be these broken men just sitting on the edges of their beds. And,
oh God.
And that was my first experience with alcoholism, because all of these people were there to be treated for alcoholism. And so I'm not a drinker, and that I can honestly say that's the main reason why.
Yeah, of course.
But I never acquired a taste for it, and so it's just not my bag. Anyway, that's the whole where I consider myself a very spiritual person. I've studied every belief system. I'm very respectful and eager to learn why somebody believes what they believe. And I've studied the scriptures myself. I started doing an adaptation of the Book of Mormon, and it started out well. The first volume was hugely successful. We made the mistake of signing an exclusive agreement with a distributor that specialized in distributing LDS, aka Mormon books. And I for whatever reason, they stopped, even though they were sold out, they stopped reordering from us. And so we weren't allowed to go through any other LDS distributors because we'd signed this exclusive. This looked like the greatest deal ever, because they actually have bookstores and stuff. And so then our only avenue that we could count on were comic book stores, and selling an adaptation of the Book of Mormon wasn't it wasn't paying the bills to the comic book stores alone. So as I was working on the fourth volume, Laura just came into me and said, we need to get back to our regular stuff, because we're going to be broke in a month. And so scrambled. I always had a list of commissions. And so for that I just dropped what I was doing. And then until I could get any other projects rolling again, I did commissions to pay the bills. It was a really scary time, but that's why we stopped doing the golden plates.
What year was that?
But oh man, I don't know. Mid 2000s, no, early 2000s. So we did. It was right after we did Ecstatics.
Okay. Sorry. I was just trying to place it in your career, like where you were at this point.
Well, we self-published for a year with the Atomics.
Right.
And that was 2000 to 2001, and then overlapped that with X-Force, which then went into Ecstatics. And we did 30-some episodes issues all together, or 40-something, because there were, it's hard to remember because we started X-Force at 116.
Right.
That's where we destroyed the Comics Code Authority. One of the most proud moments of my life. So proud that I was a part of that. But and then I can't remember what issue we ended up with before we went to Ecstatics #1, and then I think we did 26 issues of Ecstatics. Not sure. So I guess close to around 40, and then there were the specials, and Darwin did the Wolverine dupe stuff,
right?
The Dead Girl miniseries. But it was around then, so probably 2004 to 2005. Because then, with what I do remember, 2007 was when I launched Madman Atomic Comics at Image.
Mm-hmm.
So 2007 was that, and that was also our first omnibus with Madman Gargantua. 2007 was a key year. I was also in Manhattan Beach writing Madman screenplay. So 2007 is a very key, memorable year. Otherwise, the year dates all kind of blend together for me.
I was just trying to figure out, like, you were already established that at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my Matt Fraction, who he and Kelly Sue we adore. They live in Portland, and our buddy, mutual friend Randy Bowen, who's a sculptor, has done a lot of Marvel licenses and stuff. He did our first Madman sculpture, which got turned into an action figure. He would hire out this karaoke system for parties. So a guy would show up, set up everything, and we'd do karaoke, and that's where Fraction and I bonded, screaming out Bowie songs and whatnot. But with that, it was like, man, would love to work with you. And so I got a phone call with him, and he was like, hey, how'd you like to do the FF? And I was like, absolutely. Fantastic Four is the Jack Kirby run, my favorite run of any comics ever.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, this isn't that Fantastic Four. We're going to have our own Fantastic Four, and Ant-Man is going to be the leader of the group. And I love Ant-Man. And so anyway, so that was my return to Marvel, and have since then, that's where I've done the great majority of my work. I'm always doing my creator-owned projects and little DC here and there. And now, as we speak, I'm doing my biggest DC project ever with Superman Space Age. This thing is epic. In a nutshell.
No, because I'm just trying to think, I want to go back a little bit, because when you met Laura, how do you think that, like, actually... sorry, go on.
Let me say right. I just got to say, feel free to interrupt me. I will not consider it rude, because the thing is, Laura and I, we have ESP.
Uh-huh.
We can look at each other and have a conversation. So the great majority of my existence, except for Fridays, is sitting alone in my fantasy worlds, not having much human interaction. So if you ask me a question, my mind just goes. It's like trying to keep a firework in a bucket, and it just bounces around. So please, you will not. I will not consider it rude if you just go, hey, let me interrupt you.
No, I get it. I 100% get it, because my brain works that way too. I sit here and I'm mostly writing scripts or whatever, and then maybe I'll talk to my wife, and I have to, like, be pushed to like contact my friends. Like Naomi will say like, "Hey, don't you want to like see your friends this week maybe?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I should probably like text them and see if we can get lunch or something." Because otherwise I'll just kind of sit here in my brain and just like I have like a bulletin board of like with like little note cards tacked up about all these different things I want to do. And I'm like, well, I'll just move from one to the other unless someone pushes me out of that inertia. So I totally understand where you're at.
Cool. And also I become very self-conscious because I know I've told our story, you know, the Michael and Laura Allred story. I know I've told it over and over again. So I become very self-conscious about being redundant or boring people with our ridiculous love story. But
no, yeah, I get that too.
Please
because no, because Naomi and I have had to. Naomi's a stand-up, so we've had to like, when we're interviewed together, we've had to tell our story about 10,000 times at this point. So I also feel you on that. But this is the thing. I kind of just want to like change the focus a little instead of like it being necessarily about the romantic end of it. I'm curious about the existential end, because I mean that's one of the big focuses on the show that I'm interested in is the existential, like how do you know the direction you're going in life, what you want out of life, and I don't just mean in terms of career wise, but in terms of like who you want to be and what you want the world to be and how you want to interact with the world. And what I'm curious about is, when you met Laura, how do you think that changed the direction of your life? Like, do you think there was a direction you were aiming towards and that meeting her and falling so deeply in love changed that direction?
I'd arrived with meeting Laura was like, that was it. I'll just try to explain very briefly these attacks that I get. The earliest was around the age of 4, where the sky just opened up and eternity just laid out before me, and thoughts like, where did time begin? And then what was before that? And where does outer space end? And what's beyond that? I'm thinking this stuff, and it terrified me as the ceiling disappeared and I'm seeing space. And so I screamed for my mom, and she comes, and the only way she could comfort me was to bring me to now, this moment, and then ask me, what are you going to do tomorrow? Are you going to play with your friends? Is that going to be fun? And since then, it's like planning the future is necessary and important. Dad was a big chess player, and so life is kind of like a chess game where you have to plan a few moves ahead, but you also have to just kind of like sit back and enjoy right now. And that's with Laura, where before then it was like everything in front of me, like what am I going to do for a living? What courses am I going to take? All this daunting future stuff. How do I establish myself? How do I make a living? People had always pointed out that I was an artist, and that, well, you'll be an artist. And then when I'm at school as an art major, looking around, how am I going to make a living at this? And the kid across the street growing up, his dad owned a radio station, and the summer I did some part-time work there. And so I thought, well, I'll switch my major to broadcasting because I know I can at least get a job there, and eventually did. But so for me, my life is all about what's in front of me right now and enjoying right now, being focused on the people I'm having a conversation with, the people I'm spending time with, the people I'm going to the movies with, playing music with. I raised my own Partridge Family. My kids became my band members. And, toying around as the gear, and writing music together, or taking each other's songs and hey, throwing their ideas on it and my ideas on it. And so it's always about creating something today that didn't exist yesterday. That's where I get pleasure and joy. And but it's like, as far as existence, I have to enjoy right now, because if I think about, well, this is going to end, and is there anything that's going to come after that, that those thoughts just twist me and torture me. And so I just have to think about, well, what can I leave my kids? And not just financially, but philosophically, are they good people? Have I taught them well that kindness is the most powerful thing in existence? And because you can be kind right now, and just being a force for good. And oh man, it's important to note, I became a TV reporter, so my radio career turned into a TV career, and I that's how I traveled around the world. And a lot of it was without Laura. It was rare that she or the kids were able to come with me and see all these amazing things that I was, tasked to do stories on. And because more than anything, I want to share these experiences with the people I love and care about the most. The first, when I was first sent to Europe, we were headquartered in Germany, and the first story I did was on air show where Italian jets collided mid-air, and one of them went into the crowd.
Oh no!
And home video was becoming quite popular then. This was 1988. And so when I got there, I actually replaced one of the people that my job, that the guy got killed.
Oh.
So I replaced one of the people that died in this. And then we were to gather as much home footage as possible. So there's countless angles of this disaster, where you just see the flames coming out the camera, and everybody around the world got that stuff from us. And then the first proper story I did was on one of the helicopter rescue workers. Then for the next couple of years, it was mostly human interest stories, because it was for a magazine show, like a half-hour show that aired on weekends. And so I would be sent to Athens, where some kids had put together a club, for fun activities and stuff. And I'd be sent to England, where a woman was doing scale castles, like 1/10 scale castles, really intricate and stuff. And I put the camera inside there, and they looked real. And be sent to Denmark, where somebody had built a recreation center and had one of the first video driving ranges. So you would hit the ball into the wall, and it would tell you how fast and far it went, and you could see it. Stuff like that, where this technology was being developed. And so I'm hanging in Amsterdam and Austria. I went to the Eagle's Nest, and Salzburg, and Hitler held out here, and it's like, but I then go home and have to try to describe these experiences to Laura. And so then early on, so anyway, my hobby turned into a career. I got a job with a company that was going Chapter 11, and because of that, they were trying to look like they had bigger assets, and with that, paid me an outrageous page rate that showed the Air Force that I was going to make more money there. And so they're like, yeah, okay, you can go. And so I did, and then found out the company wasn't going to pay me anymore, and had to lean heavily into my own creations, which is why my first success was with creator-owned stuff, because I didn't know how to get a job with Marvel or DC or anything. And then it was the success from my own creator-owned stuff that had people like Neil Gaiman, you know, calling me up and saying, "Hey, want to do Sandman?" and stuff like that. And then my editor at Kimiko, this company that went out of business, was Shelley Roberg, who then married Philip Bond and became Shelley Bond, who with Karen Berger started Vertigo.
Right.
The imprint DC. So I was at the beginning of Vertigo, and that. So Shelley has always been a key to our lives. But what was important in all this was when I started getting invitations to be guests at comic book shows, and was making enough money that Laura could quit her job where she worked at a jewelry store to color me full time. Then it was always like, well, if you want me to come, you also got to send Laura. And very quickly established that it's both of us, or so if the show had the budget to bring us both in, and it was a place we wanted to go, we would do that. And so since then, I've always, all these amazing experiences that I've had since, and all the travels that we've had since, have been with her. One of our more recent trips and favorite trips was through Europe, and we ended up looping back into the UK and stayed in the village of Portmeirion in Wales, where they filmed the TV show The Prisoner, which is a favorite show of ours. And it looks exactly like it did in the 60s. They've maintained it, and you stay in the village. So
really?
Cottages are, oh man, if anybody listening that is a fan of The Prisoner, this will be the most amazingly surreal experience of your life, because they also have
Did they put a number on you?
Oh, well, if you want to. And I did. I have the whole jacket and everything, and I put a uncut walking tour of it on YouTube. It has like 20 views because I don't really advertise it or anything, but it's like I think it's AAA Pop in the Village. I think that's what it's called, and it's just me walking through the village, and it starts in our cottage where they have a Prisoner TV channel. You can watch The Prisoner 24/7. And when you see me shooting this, I come out of our bedroom past Laura in the sitting room where she's watching The Prisoner. And then I go down the stairs into the village. So you're watching the show, and then you walk out into the show. It's just amazing. And on that same trip, we stayed in Oakley Court, which is where they filmed the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And a lot of Hammer horror films, which I'm a big fan of too. And we got this, we stayed in the Riff Raff suite. So for anybody that watches Rocky Horror, when there's Brad and Janet, they're out in the rain, and the song, "There's a Light Over at the Frankenstein Place." And then the camera goes up to the window, the lightning's crashing, and you see Riff Raff in the window, and, and that just that beautiful haunting moment, and that's the room we stayed in, and it was just incredible. The view of out through the window. I went out and we took turns. I took, Laura's picture of Laura up there looking out the window, and then the turret next to that room is where the bathroom is. It's just so classy and cool, and so this whole trip was like full of moments like that, where we're just seeing all this amazing stuff, pulp culture wise. We did I think this was the same. Yeah, I'm almost positive this was the same trip where we were doing, I was working on the Bowie graphic novel. And so we went to all of, the Marquee Club. We went to the street where they shot the Ziggy Stardust album cover, and the phone booth, where the phone booth was for the back cover of the Ziggy Stardust album cover. The phone booth is where it was, but they've since replaced the phone booth, and you can tell because the panes in the window are different. But we went to the studios where he recorded, and there's like plaques, historical plaques. That this is where Bowie recorded Hunky Dory, and this kind of stuff. And we went to Abbey Road Studios. We did the whole crosswalk thing, and got really lucky because when we did, people are lined up taking turns walking that crosswalk, and anybody locally that thinks they're going to drive through there knows that they're going to have to wait. But we got lucky with our picture because a big, beautiful red double-decker bus was in the background. Not that was on the Abbey Road album cover, but it's just so British, But John Potton, a guy named John Potton, who's just been a wonderful supporter of ours, always been enthusiastic about our creativity. He took us to places we couldn't have found otherwise, and he took that picture for us. And we went to the apartment where number 6 lives, and I think the opening credits for The Prisoner, it's got to be the longest credits opening title sequence of any TV show ever. It's like a little mini movie. It's got to be about 3 minutes long, but you see him going to his apartment, and then this Undertaker-looking guy in a top hat puts gas in the keyhole and gasses him, and he wakes up in the village. But so we found that it's number 1. I'm blanking on the name of the street, but a famous street.
So, I mean, you were missing this obviously when you were a reporter, right? Because you were traveling without Laura. Was being a reporter, like, did you enjoy it outside of did you enjoy it, period, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Did it fulfill anything inside of you, or was it just a job?
Well, like I said, for me, it's key to always make the most of what's in front of me right now. I mean, if I have to clean the gutters, on the roof, I will just use it as an opportunity to meditate. So always just trying to be it kind of every moment is precious, and whether it's with Laura or not, or a place I want to be, or doing something I want to do, I just try to find some kind of peace in it. Just kind of, just let it be.
When did you come to that kind of understanding? Like, at what point, after you're having these kind of like existential flare-ups every like 4 or 5 years, like at what point did you start to become present? Because like that's the thing, to go back kind of towards the beginning when you asked how I just started this kind of like mindful meditation stuff in therapy, and for the first time I felt like I would wake up. I wake up all the time at night, and the first thoughts that flood into my head are like, you're not going to exist. There's going to be some point where you just don't exist.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying, right? And so when I started this like mindfulness stuff, like we really did yesterday in therapy, we really like did a lot of it. And last night when I woke up at 3 a.m. with those thoughts, there was a bit of peacefulness that hadn't been there before. And I'm kind of curious if that's also been your journey, and when did this kind of come into your life where those thoughts, those existential thoughts were tempered with a presentness, if that makes sense at all, that question.
It does. And it started from that first experience where I realized that there are going to be moments that are out of my control, and I just have to deal with them as best I can. We have to know how to protect ourselves so that we can feel safe in a confrontation. We have to know how to, if I want to be an artist, I have to know what tools to use. I mean, so it's a constant journey of experiencing and learning and growing and realizing that this is all very temporary, and to be grateful for it. Recognizing that, someday that I think what hurts the most about enjoying life is recognizing that this life will stop. So,
Yeah.
which is why reincarnation doesn't appeal as a philosophy or a belief system, because what is me is gone. If my memories aren't brought with me, what's the point of living again in some other existence?
Right.
So that's what terrifies me, that everything that is accumulated in this thing that's in my skull could just no longer work.
Uh-huh.
So I take vitamins and exercise and do all I can to just maintain as best I can. But I also recognize that we practice dying every time we go to sleep.
Uh-huh.
So there was a time that we didn't exist. I don't remember existing before. Some people may claim to have memories of previous lives and whatnot, and maybe that's true. But I don't. And there are strange things. I have very vivid dreams where I can fly in my dreams, which are the best, where I can actually feel the sensation, and it feels so real. And then when I wake up, it takes me a while to realize that, no, that wasn't real. What I'm waking up into is real. And in my dreams, I will see places I've never seen before. And and again, vivid, detailed landscapes, alien landscapes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how is this in my head? How can my brain make this up so detailed? Or is this something else that I'm, looking at, experiencing, feeling? So dreams are such a mysterious thing, but it's a leap of faith to put your head on the pillow and like, okay, I'm losing all control now.
Mm-hmm.
And will I wake up? I don't know. When I go, I would like to go in my sleep. And like, if you've had surgery or ever been put out, it is a very pleasant thing to just kind of let go. And so for me, it's kind of a rehearsal to not fear death and to be hopeful that this life has some kind of permanent meaning, that it's a step towards something else. And that in some way, these memories, these experiences that are unique only to me will be protected somehow and will have some relevance somehow. So those thoughts are always in the back, but I always have to prioritize what's in front of me right now. What am I working on right now? What am I creating right now? Who am I collaborating with right now? All of these things are the pleasures that bring happiness to my life. And, sharing this ride with amazingly talented people that inspire me and that I can learn from and grow from and share the creative process with. So a question I'm often asked is, why do you work for Marvel and DC when you're successful with your own stuff? And it's like, because I want to interact with other creators. I want to tell stories that I wouldn't be aware of otherwise or have a part in otherwise. And whenever I want to do something that's precious and personal to me, that I can do that if I just have to carve the time out to do it. So I love having those options. And I also, because of the people that came before us and fought for the treatment and rights and royalties and shared credits, the people that weren't given those degrees of respect before, because of them, we're able to enjoy those privileges and those degrees of respect. And there's a lot more to go. Sometimes it's hard to to squeeze something out that I know is mine, that I know is there and hasn't been given to me. But I also know whenever I am working for a company with characters that I have great affection for, that I don't own, I don't control, and other than having my ideas approved and supported, it's not my choice. It's not my decision what happens with it. So I'm very keenly aware of that sort of thing, and happy to do it because of the pleasure that it gives me, and also whether it's nostalgia or, again, working with other people who also, as an example, Dan Slott on Silver Surfer.
Right.
It's like this. Here we are. It's like we're going to the movies together, but we're making our own movie. And then, we get to watch it together, and we get to see how people react to it. And it's like the studio said, hey, you get to make a Silver Surfer movie. The difference is it's drawn out on paper, and we have a lot more control, and with the support of editors like Tom Brevoort, who I've worked with for years and years and years at Marvel. I think he's amazing. I know that there's a level of trust and support there, and if something's like, I don't know if this is going to fly, we know that there's somebody there that's going to fight for our idea. And so at some point, it's almost the same freedom that I get with my creator-owned work, because there's a level of trust. People know that if I'm on a book, that they have certain expectations. They know what I'm interested in. They know how my characters are going to, that they will express themselves. That and so once you kind of established yourself, it's just so much easier to go in there and tell the story the way you want to tell it. Where earlier on, I'd always have to justify it. Well, I'm doing it this way because of this, and I'm drawing it like that because of that, and constantly having to explain myself. I haven't had to do that, and I can't even remember the last time I had to do that. And it's so rare that anything I do anymore is asked to be changed or altered. And same with commercial projects. Early on, you would, if you were part of a commercial project, part of it would be submitting, multiple roughs. So here, give us 3 roughs, and then we'll pick our favorite. I haven't had to do that in forever too, because for me now, it's like, this is the image that I feel is best. This is what I'm giving you. And I can't remember the last time anybody wasn't happy with what I chose to do. So those are the pleasures of having some success and establishing yourself, and having people have the faith, understanding, or expectation of what they're going to get when they're working with you.
That actually seems like a very nice place to end. Spike, thank you so much. I really appreciate you talking with me today.
Oh, sure. It's been nice to talk to another human being.
Right. And now both of us will go back to staring at, well, in my case, a final draft on my computer alone, living in our own heads for a while. But thank you for.
Well, I'm going to Metropolis.
That's great. It's a great place to go. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, oh, 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 bye.